having a day like Are You OK Day is just an important reminder and a great anchor. All right, well, I'm going to start with what it feels like to be in that dark place. Essentially, it's a bit of a corruption of the mind. I got myself to a point where running away from my fears ended up closing down my world, right? And fears followed me. So let's just say I felt anxiety whenever I thought about mortality. So then I stopped thinking about mortality. And then anxiety might pop up in a social situation. So I'd avoid social situations that I thought might trigger anxiety. Doing things that I've done for most of my life eventually became ordeals until I worked out that, you know, maybe it's not the external world here, but it's my response to the external world that's causing me to feel such intense emotions. But before I could come to that conclusion, I was just in this really dark, noisy world where it just felt like the whole world was coming down on me. So naturally, when you feel like that, you're always in protective mode. Your fight or flight is very sensitive, if not almost always engaged. And the threat scanner, I call it the threat scanner in my head, is really, really sensitive and alive. So it didn't take much for me to be triggered. And unfortunately, that also included social settings as well as being on stage, but particularly social settings. So by me avoiding social gatherings meant that I was distancing myself from my friends, and which for them made it really hard for them to see that I was struggling because I actually just wasn't around. Now, the nature of experiencing any type of anxiety or depression is that you are lost in your own world up here and you can't think logically, which is why it's really important to have a friend or a family member around you that can anchor you, that can reach out to stop yourself from getting swept up in this, you know, this corrupted world that you've created in your mind. So as far as why don't people reach out when they're struggling, I've been asked that question. There can be lots of reasons. There can be shame. I know a lot of my male friends have a lot of shame about reaching out, and they just see it as weakness to reach out for help. And I remember my psychologist saying to me once when he was asking me, you know, what are you waiting for with regards to going on tour and giving it a crack again? And I said to myself, I want to feel like I can be dropped anywhere in the world and work it out if I'm stuck mentally. And he just shook his head. And he said, why do you think that? I said, well, that's resilience, that's strength. And he said, no, strength is in also knowing when to reach out for help, when you don't have the answers, when you are scared and you feel like you don't have it within you. Strength is in reaching out in those situations as well. And the other is I had a lot of cravings. Like I wanted to be around my friends, but I was afraid of being triggered in front of them. I was afraid of having an anxiety attack in front of my friends. From the outside, if you haven't experienced an anxiety attack before, you wouldn't be able to understand why it was something to fear. But an anxiety attack for me, it felt like I was leaving my body. Like it literally felt like I was leaving my body and somebody had poisoned me. Almost a bit tripped out, where people didn't seem like people anymore, and the world and things just didn't seem right. Like everything just turned into this kind of threat. So to experience that in front of one person, let alone a gathering, or in my case on stage, was terrifying. So I never reached out. There were times where I reached out on social media and just to express the place that I was in, and I felt like I made it quite clear that I wasn't in a great place mentally, which is why I probably held a bit of resentment towards certain friends that I was always there for that didn't reach out. Now, in terms of making peace with that resentment that I felt, I had to see it from their point of view. Some people, they don't understand what to do. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to help. Then there are the others that are just so lost in their own world that they don't even notice. And even if you do say that you had a bad day or struggling with your mental health, it still doesn't register. And then others literally don't care. They don't want to know. So I had a mix of friends. Now, so a little bit of advice on how to respond comes from what I craved personally, and it's probably going to be different for everybody. I needed hope. I was really low on hope. I didn't have any anchors. I didn't know what to do. So for a friend to reach out and flick me a link to an article that might be helpful, that's amazing. I had another friend who does shiatsu massage. So she offered to come around and help out with that and just have some general chats about her experiences. You know, just planting the seed, just a little bit of a light sort of like, here, you know, try this out. Even just a message to go, I'm thinking of you, you know. I hope you're having a good day. Could be a joke. It could be, you know, just anything. I think the biggest thing is just presence, to know that you aren't alone. Anxiety thrives on alienation, that feeling of alienation, that you are the only one in the world that's experiencing this, which is not true, but that's how it feels in the moment. Even just talking about it and hearing their thoughts, my guard would come down and I'd feel everything lighten. What is it about that? Because my situation hadn't changed. I still experienced, you know, anxiety attacks, but it's because the resistance disappeared. There was this acceptance, there was this surrender, there was this feeling like, you know, of safety. There was this feeling of love, and then that you're of belonging, that you're also not disconnected and you're not alienated. Just being present with a friend is really important. I know I craved also just going somewhere and looking at a view. Like, I didn't really want to say much. I didn't want to fake it. I didn't want to, that's what I was tired of. I was tired of faking happiness. I wasn't happy. I felt guilty about bringing anybody down. And on the odd occasion when I had that, oh my God, it was amazing. Like to sit and just, it's like you can feel them hugging you. You can feel, that you're not alone, even though no words have been said. So there are just a few ways that you can be there for your friends and family if you suspect that they're struggling with their mental health. And a simple check-in. That's sort of what Are You OK Day is about, is just a reminder, just check in. As far as the things that don't help or that can make it worse, that's worth being aware of, is that I do find it ironic that it's called Are You OK Day, right? But sometimes if somebody said to me, are you okay? Now there's paranoia that's entwined into my, you know, mental instability, and where I don't want to appear like I'm feeling anxious. And if I appear that I'm feeling anxious, then it's going to make me more anxious, right? I need to feel like everything is okay. So when somebody looks at me and says, are you okay? Right? Oh, fuck. Why? What? Am I okay? Oh, shit. Like, what am I doing? What? Should I not be standing like this? Like what? Like if I'm really, really in that paranoid state, that can inflame it, right? So just be mindful of that. Is anything that triggers that person to feel like this moment there's something wrong is probably not the best thing. Other things that don't help. Positive thinking, you know, that being slammed down your throat, or, you know, cheer up, you know, like you always look on the bright side. There's a time and a place for that. But sometimes you just need permission to feel how you feel. You need somebody to say, you know, it's okay to feel how you're feeling. However you feel is completely okay. And how you feel now is not necessarily going to be how you feel in 5 minutes time or 10 minutes time or an hour's time or whatever. But how you feel right now is okay. I got you. What that says when you're in a moment, when you're struggling, when you're in the opposite place, is that what you're feeling is not right. And the quickest way for your feelings to be digested is by accepting them and by surrendering to them with a sense of love and compassion, knowing that it's okay to feel how you feel. I want to kind of tell you a little bit of a story on how Kenny, he's one of the very few all times friends that I have. I worked out back then I have good times friends and I have all times friends. He's an all times friend. He would ring and check in fairly regularly. And, you know, sometimes he'll ask the direct question, you know, how you doing, man? Like really, actually, how are you? And other times he just ring to chat, right? Just chat about something random. So all those little calls and texts, they helped massively. Our conversations would sometimes lead towards the things that are tripping me up. And then he would have some great wisdoms to share, right? And I remember one thing him saying, because I'd experience panic attacks on stage, and so many of them on tour, whether it was in the tour bus or that, eventually going on tour and performing became this huge ordeal, and I just stepped away from that. So he knew that was a big challenge for me. And he said to me something that really stuck is, just remember, man, it's not the stage that you're afraid of. It's feeling anxiety. It's all the stuff that happens around it. But it's not the stage. When you're on stage and you're playing, you're at home. So just that little bit of wisdom helped me to separate the two, because I balled it into one big stress. As my mind started to tick, I was seeing my psychologist. I'm starting to feel, excuse my boy on the other side of the wall. So I'm starting to feel the momentum from applying all these things that I had learned in how to deal with my fears and anxieties. And, I'm starting to feel comfortable in social situations. Actually, I'm really enjoying social situations. My world is opening up, bit by bit. And I'm starting to think maybe it's a bad idea that I turn my back on music forever. I decide that, I want to give performing a go again. I want to get back up on stage and push and move through those fears until I get to the other side of fear. And if I don't like performing, then I'm at peace with turning my back on music. I don't want my decision to be from a place of fear. So, and just as he started kind of recognizing that that's how I was thinking, he said to me, listen, I'm doing these little gigs at the Rocks. I'm by myself. I'm just playing all of our favorite blues tunes. Come down. Just there'll be a guitar and an amp waiting. If you feel uncomfortable, no big deal. Just, have a beer, go home, whatever you want to do. It's not going to be advertised. Nobody's going to know that you're coming. You just rock up and see how you feel. If you want to get up and have a play, 1 song, 2 songs, you want to play the whole set, whatever you want to do, there's no commitment, there's no pressure. And I'm somebody, like before that, I toured the world. I did all these huge gigs. So that was such like a mountain to climb. The idea of me walking into a bar that had music was a huge trigger for me. But I knew it wasn't going to get any easier than this. So, I booked it in. I made the commitment and I jumped on the train, got down there, and there he is in the corner. Nobody's really paying attention. It's one of those gigs where people are having their after, work beers and stuff. And he's there in his own world playing all this awesome blues. And I'm looking at it and I'm terrified. I really am terrified. But I knew from all my experiences dealing with fear previously that I had to make peace with those sensations, that it was okay for me to feel afraid. I didn't need to be excited. I didn't need to be happy. I got rid of all the expectations. Okay, I'm afraid, but I'm going to continue to put one foot in front of the other despite how I feel, because I know this is the right thing to do. I'm not going to let fear hold me back. And so I got up on stage and I'm shaking. Like it was mind-blowing. Nobody was even paying attention. He didn't even introduce me. I just kind of got up on stage. But looking into his eyes straight away, that was the first thing that kind of made the guard just come down. And I just felt like, all right, I'm coming home. It's okay. He's got my back. He didn't even need to say it. I just saw it in his eyes. He had my back. Everything was okay. And then the next thing was looking at my guitar. And that is also home as well. Looking at my guitar. This is the guitar that, got me through battling leukemia. It got me through, all the dramas I had throughout my teenage years. It's been with me, around the world. It's there. It's my rock, right? So between looking at him and playing guitar and focusing on the music, they were my anchors. And I played. And I didn't just play 1 song. I stayed for 3 sets. And that became a regular thing every 2 weeks. And it got easier and easier and easier until it became the highlight of my week, is to hurry up, finish work so I can get down to the Forbes Hotel in the Rocks, have some beers with my mate Kenny and play all of our favorite blues tunes until it got to a point where I'm like, I want more. So that right there is how a friend can be there for you. And there's lots of different versions of that. That's my version of it. And when we're on tour, I feel that security from him, and I know he feels it from me as well. So that's a bit on how you can be there for your friends and family in the theme of Are You Okay Day? And I hope that helped.